Welcome to the 3 Tenets of Puppetry introductory course. I am your teacher, Sarah Jordan Reddert, and I'm excited to teach you about puppetry. Full disclosure, I am super awkward on camera, so I apologize if at some point I sound very static like a robot. Focus dictates what the puppet is thinking, but in relation to the puppeteer, we should be focusing on the actual puppet rather than what the puppet is looking at. What the puppeteer is looking at tells the audience where they should be directing their attention, and it helps concentrate the energy of what's happening on stage to the actual puppet. Puppeteer's use of breath in a performance is important because it's reflected onto the puppet that we're controlling. It gives the puppet a sense of life, and it allows us as the audience to know how the puppet feels about the object that it's focusing on. So for example, you can go, You can tell it's sad, or and it's excited, it's focused on something, something's caught its eye. And it also gives the puppet a sense of groundedness, so similar to how any actor, when they're in a performance on stage, breath gives them a sense of groundedness and releases them of tension. That same idea is reflected in puppetry. So movement shows intention. Basically, without movement, puppetry as an art form doesn't really exist. The puppet isn't moving, it's a statue. It's very static. It informs us of the integrity of the character, and the movement of the puppeteer reinforces the movement of the puppet itself. It's kind of like a movement relationship. The puppeteer moves along with the puppet to allow the story to progress. Ultimately, there were 3 big takeaways that I could find from the McLeod reading that I saw parallel within what we've been learning so far in puppetry, and one was this page about lines. And so they talk about how just a line can carry a lot of different expressions based off of the direction that it's being placed, which is similar to in puppetry, because based off of whatever angle we hold our puppet in, you can give it an emotion. Can be excited, or it can be gazing, looking at something, interested. It can be sad. It can be confused based off of how we hold it. So the way in which a puppeteer directs its attention is similar to how a line in art gives off an expression, I guess. Sorry if I'm not phrasing this in the best possible way. Another takeaway that I found, sorry, I'm just trying to find the page, was this quote right here, where it says, "There is no life here except that which we give to it." That's just a blank face, which is similar to in puppetry because obviously, like I talked about with breath earlier, it's our job as a puppeteer to bring the puppet to life. So without it, it's just a statue. Without movement, without breath, it's just an object. But when we give it interest or do fun things with it, it becomes like a part of a bigger story, I guess. And then my last takeaway is kind of a generic takeaway, but I just found it really interesting. I never really realized before that there are kind of unwritten rules sometimes to art, or sometimes as artists we find ourselves restricted in what we can and can't do. But after reading this, McLeod talks about how, he just talks about how even though you can find a definition for a specific art form, the following generations are going to come in and something's going to happen and that changes it a different way. So nothing's ever set in stone. So there really are no limitations to art. It's our job as artists to explore whatever we can. And puppetry is just a very good example of that. There really are no limitations to what we can do. And I just found that to be really powerful and cool. And until reading this, I hadn't really realized or given it much thought, I guess. Throughout the course of this class, I've probably been most inspired by the Bunraku videos, because in the video they talked a lot about how the puppet's power comes from its core, which as a dancer that resonated with me, because all of our power and our groundedness and control ultimately comes from our core. And so I could just see that parallel between the puppet and my own life, which, I don't know, I guess that was just powerful, because we talk about how puppets, like breath gives puppets life, but it's also where they gain their control from is also similar to how humans gain their control. So I could just see a parallel between the two, which I thought was cool.